Okay, welcome back, everyone. As we continue our Motzi Shabbos marathon, and it is a special zechia learning the hard sugya of shtaris in the first parak of Bava Metzia. By the way, Rabbi say it's a good time to say that starting Wednesday night, this coming week, the day before Tanis Esther, we will be starting Elu Metzias, and that's a great time to bring people in that are starting off a career of learning Gemara, because it's really geschmack, and it's a good starter sugya. So it's good to invite people, and then of course afterwards we hook them in, and they're mesmerized by people like Marshall, and they don't want to leave. We are holding right now on Daf Tez Zayin Amud Beis, and here, it's interesting that the Gemara a lot of times gets into tangential discussions. It usually doesn't verbalize it. Here the Gemara verbalizes it. The kafran and a liar, Hayil v'asal liyadan, since we started talking about Marshall, since we started talking about a liar, name a Beimilsa, let's discuss something about a liar. Amrav Yosef Amin Yomi Amrav Nachman Amrulai. If the court tells Marshall, say Tainlai, say, go out and give it to him, that's a final verdict. Say Tainlai, V'ama Parati, and he says, I paid it. And Rashi says he did a shvuas heses, he swore, Neman, he's believed. And then ba mal v'lichtayv, if I want to have the verdict of the court written, ein kaisman nicely, they don't give it to me, because what do you mean? Marshall already swore that he paid it. However, if after I had to schlep him to court, they told him you're required to give it to Rabbi Weiss. Now, they didn't tell him say. They didn't give it the final verdict yet. There, v'ama parati, there if Marshall says he paid it, he's not believed. Because if I had to schlep him to court, he's not paying it until they tell him say, go out and do it. So therefore, then we don't believe him. And ba mal v'lichtayv, if I asked for a written transcript of the court that he owes the money, they write it and then they give it to me. Rav Zvid doesn't hold to this. Rav Zvid mishmeid Rav Nachman Amabain say Tainlai, whether the court told Marshall go out and give it, Bain Chayev Atalitin, or you're required to give it. I mean that's enough for a man like Marshall. Chayev is pretty definitive. V'ama Parati, and he says I paid it with the shvuas heses, Neman. And ba mil v'lichtayv, if I come to have the decision of the court written, ain't kaisim and nicely, don't give it to me, because he already swore that he paid it. Ella fluge, if you want to make a difference between say tainlai and chayiv, that say is more definitive, fluge. You can make the difference in the following case. Amalite say tainlai. If the court tells him, go out and give Rabbi Weiss the money, v'ama parati, and he says, I paid it, and then va'edim me'idin I say shalai paru, a witness is saying, you didn't pay it. There, he's not believed afterwards to say again that he paid it unless he did it in front of witnesses. He's presumed to be a liar. He's not believed to say he paid it unless he does it in front of witnesses. If the court didn't give the final issuance of tzei, you're required to give it. V'ama parati, and Marshall says he gave it. V'eina me'ida, he says shaloi para, and the witnesses testified that he didn't pay it yet. Lo yochze kafan lo yisamamen. He's not proven to be false. If afterwards Bezdin then tells him say v'teinlai, and he says he paid it, he's believed. My timer, he's just avoiding it until there's a final psak of the court. I'm only going to pay it if the Rabbanan do their final analysis and say, go and give it. Now, Amar Rabba Bar Chana, Amar Rabbi Yochanan, Mana li biyadcha, Marshal, $100 of mine is in your hand. Va'ala Amar, and Marshal, with studied ease, says to me, Ein lecha biyadi klum. I have nothing of yours. Zero. Nada. And witnesses say that he does have it. And then because of Amma Parati, then he says, I paid it. He's not believed unless he did it in front of Aiden. Holds the kafan loisei mammon, and he's not believed unless he did it in front of witnesses. And the Gemara says an actual case. There are people like Marshall. Kihod de Shapsoi Brei de Rebbe Marinus. Shapsoi, the son of Rebbe Marinus, Kosav lo lekalse itztala de milsa b'ksuvasa. Shapsai, the son of Rebbe Marinus, wrote to his daughter-in-law. He pledged a cloak of fine wool for her ksuva. The kibla alei, and he accepted the obligation. He accepted the commitment upon himself to pay for his daughter-in-law's ksuva a fine woolen cloak. She was widowed, and irkas ksuvasa, the ksuva was lost. When she said, you promised me a fine woolen cloak, Amalahu, he said to them, Lo yaya dvar me'aylam. Never happened. I know what she's talking about. Never happened. I don't know what she's talking about. Then also Sadeh ve'imrei, then witnesses came in Kozla. Yeah, he promised her a woolen cloak, fine woolen cloak. Then he tries another tack. L'saif amalu paratia. Then he said, I gave it to her. Also, the coming to Rebbe Chia, they came before Rebbe Chia. Amalei, since he lied about it initially and he said it never happened, now he's not believed to say that he paid it unless there's witnesses. Holds the kafan loisa itztala. He's proven to be a liar for this cloak. Now, it's nice to have 29 Zoomers on this mission to learn this Gemara, and it's so wonderful to have all of you here in the shul, and of course all of our viewers on Torah Anytime, and on YouTube, and on Facebook, and on Kol Lashon. I made a bracha already. Amar Rabbi Avin, Amar Rabbi La, Amar Rabbi Yochanan. Hayachayev lechaveiroi shvua. If somebody was responsible to take an oath, v'amar nishbati, and he says, I took an oath, v'edem me'iden oisoi shaloi nishba, and witnesses testify that he didn't take the oath, which means that he's not believed anymore to say he took an oath, except if it was in front of witnesses. Amru kamei Rabbi Yavo. They said this before Rabbi Yavo. Amalu mistavra milsid Rabbi Avin shenischayev shvua bebezdin. That's only if he was liable to swear in court. Aval chayev atzmei b'shvua. But if he says I'll take an oath, they're nemen. Why? Because even he said it, he took it already. Sometimes people just try to push it off. So even if he said one time that he didn't take it, that he took it and he didn't take it yet, he's still believed to say that he took it if it was a self-imposed oath. They said this over to Rabbi Avin. Amalu ana nami. I also, when I said it, I was talking about a shvua that was obligated by the court. If he was required to swear in court. He said, I swore, and witnesses say that he didn't make the oath. Holds the kafir like a shvur. He's not believed anymore to say he took the oath, unless there are witnesses that he took the oath. Amar Rav Asi, Amar Rav Yochanan. Back to what Michal Avram wants, shtaris. He wants shtaris. He says, give me the money. The Amar Rav Asi, Amar Rav Yochanan. Ha'moitzi shtar chayv b'shuk. If Shelley finds a promissory note in the shtuk, v'kasav by henpik, and it's confirmed, v'kasav by zmanoi boy bayayim, and its date was just today. Oh, there Yahzru Labayim. Shelley could return it to me. What are you going to say, that Marshall already paid and it fell for Marshall? He can't say that he wrote it, but he didn't take the loan because it has a certification. That he'll say, I paid it and it fell for me and not from Rabbi Weiss. Lepriya Bas Yuma, to say that it was paid just on the day that it was issued, loy chayshina. So the Gemara says, do we not suspect that it was paid on the day? Do people not pay a loan on the same day? Amalei Rab Zerah Rav Asi mi Amar Rab Yochanan hachi. Ha'atu da'amrit mishmei Rab Yochanan. You said in the name of Rab Yochanan, shtar shalavaboy. If Marshall gave me an IOU note that says that he owes me $10,000, uparoi, and he paid me the $10,000, einoi chayzer v'loy v'boy, I can't use it again. Now Marshall says, Rabbi Weiss, I want another loan. I can't reuse the same IOU note. You know why? Because the IOU note gives me the power to have a lien on Marshall's property. Once he paid it, the lien was already canceled, and you cannot create a second lien with the same shtar. Shekfar nimchel shibudai. But what's the case over here that Marshall wants to use the shtar the second time? Amos. If he wants to use it tomorrow or the day after, we couldn't use the shtar because it's predated, and a predated shtar is no good. Why do you have to say the reason is because the lien already was canceled? It's predated. Predated shtaris are psulin. It must be that he paid me that day. So you see, people pay on the day. Alma pori in shebiyume. So the Gemara says, of course people could pay the same day. But if Shelley finds the shtar, we're not worried because it's not likely. Amalei mikamina dolei pori klal. Do we say that people don't pay on the same day? People don't pay that day. It's not shliach. So therefore, if Shelley finds the shtar, he could say that it's probably the creditor that dropped it and not the lender, not the borrower, and he paid already, because it's not likely a person paid the same day. Rav Kahana says that that which it says that Shelley could return me the document, it's talking about kishechayiv moida. It's talking about where Marshall agrees that he didn't pay me yet. And that's why Shelley could return it to me. Says the Gemara, well, ihachi ma'ila meimra. If so, then what's the chiddush? It says the Gemara, ma desema hai mifra pore. Well, it could be that Marshall already paid it. And what's the reason that he wants to have it returned to me? Because he wants to use it again. And that which he says that I didn't pay it, because he wants to use it another time. And therefore he said that he didn't pay it, so that it should be good for another loan. And what Marshall is being cheap about is the money for the scribe. Says the Gemara Kamash Malon that we're not worried about that. Because I'll never agree to it. I'll never agree to use it again. Because I don't want to have a problem later on that they'll say I don't have a lien on the buyers because I used an old star. I'm not gonna go along with this scheme. The rabbis will hear that I used a second time around star, and they'll tell me I can't collect from the buyers. Says the Gemara, well, if you find a document of security, if there's a security clause, lo yarzer. And we said that it's talking about even though Marshall admits that that he didn't pay. And we said, what's the reason that we don't give it to me if Marshall admits that he owes me the money? Because we're afraid that it has a date of Nisan, and really he didn't lend the money for me until Tishrei, and it'll give me the opportunity to collect from buyers 6 months early. Maybe it was written to take the loan in Nisan, but he didn't actually take the loan until Tishrei. And I'll get a 6 month earlier lien, but why don't we say, I would never agree to such an arrangement? We don't say that I would never agree to such a thing. I would say rather make sure to write another document from Tishrei. The Dilma Shami Rabbanim might hear mifzalili, and then they'll stop me from collecting with it because they'll say it's a predated star. Says the Gemara, over there I might go along with it. You know why I might go along with it? Because I'm getting a 6 month earlier lien. Imrei Hasam Mishum de Islay Ravcha. There I get a benefit. The Qatar of Lukukas Manisan Vatishe. Because I get a 6 month boost. So and I won't say anything. But over here, because Marshall wants to save money on writing a second star, I'll be quiet and take it back. Hacha, Kavan the Leslie Ravcha, I'm not getting any benefit. The same stara inaksiv, it's the date of today. So I'm not getting any benefit. I'm never going to go along with using a star the second time. That I could take a lien. I'm not going to use a star a second time. I'm going to tell them they're going to find out it's a second time, and then I'm going to lose my lien on the property. I'm never going to agree to that.
That they don't talk about, that would be another reason.
What?
That, about a Kanunya, that would be a possible reason.
If you hold of Kanunya.
Yeah.
The one that said because of, doesn't hold of Kanunya. Now.
What's the Lashon of Lo Shavak?
Huh?
Lo Shavak, what's the Lashon?
He won't allow it. Shavak means to let it go. So Lo Shavak, he won't let it go. Now, Amar Reb Chia bar Abba, Amar Reb Yochanan. Hatoyin achar ma'aseh bezdin. In a case where let's say there's an obligation placed on Marshall from the court. And Marshall claims that he took care of it. Not in the presence of witnesses. He says, I took care of it. Lo yamaklum. Because a Maisa Bezdin, an obligation of the court, is like something that's recorded in a shtar. And something that's recorded in a shtar, you could only say you took care of it if you have witnesses. My timer. Kol Maisa Bezdin, any obligation of the court, commanded noket shtar b'yadei dami. It's as if he has, as if I have a document, and he can't say I took care of it unless he has proof that he did it in front of witnesses. Amalei Reb Chia bar Abba Reb Yochanan. So Reb Chia bar Abba says to Reb Yochanan, "V'loi Mishnah seinu izu." You're not telling me a novelty; it's a Mishnah. Hoitziya get. If she presented a get, the eini my ksuva, even though she doesn't have with her a ksuva, but it's a Maisa Bezdin. It's a Maisa Bezdin that you have to pay the 200 for a B'sula or the 100 for an Almana. So Goiva Ksuvasa, she could collect her Ksuva unless he has witnesses that he paid her. So here's where we learn this. So he says, okay, Amalei Lav de Deloila Chaspa, if I wouldn't have picked up the shard, on the bottom of the seabed there's shards, and underneath them are pearls. Ilav de Deloy lo chaspa, if I wouldn't have picked up the shard, lo mishkachach manganisa tusa, you wouldn't have found this pearl. Says, what kind of raya is that? Maybe it's talking, in Ksuvas we learned that there are some places where the minig was to write a Ksuva, and some places where the minig is not to write a Ksuva. Amar Abaye, my marganisa, what's the pearl? Dilma b'makom she'en kaisim ksuva askina. And therefore the get is the document. The get hainu ksuvasa. Aval b'makom she'kaisim ksuva, we don't say simply because of a Maisa Bezdin. Nakit na ksuva gabe. If she has the ksuva, then she could collect the money. Iloi loi, if not, not. Iloi loi gavya. Hadar Amar Abaye, la milsi de amre. It's not true what I said. The Isal kedaitach b'makom she'en kaisim ksuva askinan, aval b'makom she'kaisim ksuva, in a place where they write the ksuva. Ina kita ksuva gavya. If she has a ksuva, you collect. Iloi loi gavya. Then a widow from betrothal, how will she ever collect her ksuva? Almana mina erisim b'may gavya. She doesn't have yet a ksuva. The ksuva is written only when they get married. If she can only collect with a ksuva, how could she collect? What are you going to say? Be'edei misas bal? What are you going to say? That the proof is that she brings witnesses that the husband died? He'll claim, I paid it then. V'leima paratia. V'chi teima hachanami. And if you'll say, well, that's true. That's true. That in the case of an almanim and erison, if they say we paid it, they're believed. So then why be masakin ksuva for an almana? They could always say they paid it. They could always say, now of course not everybody's going to lie. But there's no way to ensure the payment of a ksuva to an arusa. Says Gemara, could you tell me, how do you know that a widow from betrothal is entitled to a ksuva? The argument is it shouldn't be, because the ksuva is first written at marriage. How do you know a widow from betrothal is entitled to a basic ksuva? Says the Gemara, Amalei Makshisha Bered Rav Chisda Rav Ashi Malmana Mina Erison the Isla Ksuva Minolan. How do we know that? Ilay Mahat Mahadit Nanis Armala Iniskash, if she's widowed or divorced, Bain Mina Erison, Bain Mina Nasuan, whether for betrothal, whether for marriage, Goyves Akol, she could collect everything. Maybe that's just telling him if he wrote her a Ksuva. Dilma Heicha de Kosovla. You'll say if he wrote it to her, then what's the chiddush? What's the chiddush? Oh, there is a chiddush. Because I might say if he pledged it to her only having in mind if he consummates the marriage. That's the opinion of Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah. He says that if he pledges to her from betrothal and she dies before she was married, she doesn't get it. Because he only gave it with the hope of consummating the marriage. So Rabbanan say, no, if he wrote it to her from betrothal, she gets it. And Dekanami, that it means where he wrote it to her, the Ketani Goyves Hakol. Goyves Hakol means you collect everything, no matter if he promised her $1,000. Now therefore that must mean that he wrote something to her. Because he could have written her anything. Then it should say $200 by a basula and $100 by a almana. What do you mean goyves hakol? My goyves hakol, mana masayim this. If she's not a virgin, she's entitled to 100, and if she's a virgin, 200, but not more. So we still do not have a proof where there's no ksuva written that an almana min ha'erisin is entitled to a basic ksuva. We're going to revisit this in Yirtzeh Hashem tomorrow night at 7:45. Remember, Rabbi say 7:45 is daf. We will let you know later on in the week the timing. There'll be complicated timing for Thursday night, which is Tanis Esther, and for Motzi Shabbos, Purim night. Motzi Shabbos is going to be very tricky. We're going to probably have a very late shir Motzi Shabbos. So you're going to sleep a lot on Shabbos afternoon, so that we should be able to have a very late shir on Motzi Shabbos. It won't be hard Gemara; it's going to be Elementzias. But so we'll give you the information, and don't forget, learning on Purim night is a really big schar. Really big schar. There's less learning in the world. Wherever there's less learning in the world, it's a really big schar. And now we're going to do the Mishnah Yomis.